We're about to land in Los Angeles. We're heading there for LA Art Week as well as Freeze LA. And we're going to hit the ground running and try to see a few exhibits today before they close. And then we'll explore more of West Hollywood tomorrow. We are pretty hungry, so we're going to stop by In-N-Out. This is always a classic, even though I still maintain that Shake Shack is better. Our first stop had to be Hauser Wirth's brand new space in West Hollywood. I was super curious to see what it would be like since their spaces are normally pretty spectacular. I will say it's a lot bigger on the inside than it looks on the outside. And this is an exhibit of new works by George Condo. If you're not familiar with George Condo, no worries, although he's no stranger to the art world. He moved to New York City after meeting Jean-Michel Basquiat, and he also worked in Andy Warhol's factory. He's worked with some of the greatest art dealers of the century, like Monica Spruth now of Spruthmagers, Barbara Gladstone of Gladstone Gallery, just to name a few. And a lot of people in pop culture know Condo for the album covers that he did for Kanye West, as well as a recent one that he did for Travis Scott. The exhibit is called People Are Strange, which was inspired by a song by The Doors with the same name. And all the works really feature his signature sort of fractured portraits. Now, this is my personal opinion, so take this with a grain of salt, but I do feel like the works in this exhibit were a little all over the place. I felt like they were kind of throwbacks to his old aesthetic, his newer aesthetic, and even kind of a full abstract aesthetic, which I've never seen before. And honestly, I was into the most. To me, it feels like he's on a bit of a journey, still trying to figure out how he wants to push himself moving forward as an artist, but he's not sure yet. That's how I was reading this. This piece was my personal favorite of the show. I really enjoyed how far into the abstract space that he pushed with this, so I personally would be pleased if he continued more in this direction moving forward, but we'll see. I think the upside to all of this is that the exhibit served as almost a little retrospective, so if you're not familiar with Condo's work, you can see little glimpses into elements of his style over the past few decades. Now I'm going to head over to David Kordansky and Pace Gallery because they're right next to each other, although they are pretty far away from other galleries. We're going to start at David Kordansky. This is a two-person exhibition featuring new sculptures and works on paper by Huma, Bhabha, and new paintings and drawings by Michael Williams. So both artists employ techniques of collage and assemblage as well as texture. Michael Williams often begins his paintings by creating digital collages, which he then uses as a template for his brushwork. And the paintings often feature multiple panels that can be arranged in different configurations. Huma Bhabha is a Pakistani American artist whose work includes not only sculpture, but drawing and printmaking. And her work often explores themes of identity, mythology, and the relationship between humanity and nature. Bhabha's sculptures often combine found materials such as cork and wood with traditional sculptural materials like bronze and plaster, and her figures, often humanoid or animalistic, are simultaneously familiar and strange, evoking a sense of ancient mythology or otherworldly beings. Michael Williams' paintings in this room take on a very different style to his puzzle drawings and paintings. These works feature references to technology, advertising, and popular culture because Williams is interested in the ways in which painting can reflect and engage with contemporary culture. Overall, Williams' work has a sense of this playful experimentation and a willingness to explore the boundaries of both painting and drawing. Bhabha's drawings and collages in this room that we see here feature similar themes and motifs as her sculptures, such as hybridized figures. We're going to pop into Pace Gallery around the corner before it closes. I want to show you all the space, even though I have taken you all there in a previous video where we visited the Julian Schnabel exhibit. I will leave that linked above and below. It's a really beautiful space and I always enjoy seeing it, so I thought you all would as well. The exhibit we're going to see tonight is titled Tentative, and it's the result of Richard Tuttle collaborating with the Alexander Calder Foundation to bring together sculptures and works on paper by Calder that were all made amid the outbreak of World War II in 1939. This exhibit also highlights Calder's collaborations with some of the greatest architects of his time. And a great example of this is this work. It is nearly 7 feet tall and it's a sculpture titled Sphere Pierced by Cylinders. And it was created as a part of Oscar Nietzsche's architectural proposal for the Bronx Zoo. We're going to spend today in West Hollywood, which has a very high concentration of art galleries. And our first stop is going to be Karma Gallery, which I've never actually been to their LA space, so I'm excited to see it. In classic Karma fashion, they have a great bookstore in the entryway. And I say that because Brendan Dugan, the founder of the gallery, started his career designing artist posters and books and then had a bookstore, so he's definitely a fellow book appreciator. So this is a gorgeous space and it's absolutely massive, which you'll see as a theme among LA galleries as opposed to what we have in New York. And this is an exhibit by Peter Halley. This is actually his first in LA in nearly 2 decades. And the exhibit features 10 new paintings from Halley. The rectangular shapes that his paintings are composed of are meant to be abstract representations of the state of society, and more specifically, representative of social shifts within society. So, what do I mean by that? Halley's compositions, especially those created before 2018, they're usually one large rectangle filled with shapes inside of it. And in these works, the shapes that would normally fill the work almost break out of that space, and they're stacked on top of one another to create these new power structures. Another important thing to point out with these structures is that many of them are top heavy, meaning there's more of a concentration of shapes at the top than the bottom. I think Halley has done this specifically to comment on a noticeable shift within our society where the quote top, in terms of power and resources, is disproportionately skewed more so than ever. Our next stop is going to be Nino Mir Gallery, who has a couple of locations right on Santa Monica Boulevard. This is an exhibit by Hubert Schmalix, and this is a very petite space, but they've used it well, filling it with these paintings. And the exhibit is titled In Eyes Upon, and in it, Schmalix plays with, quote, deep, heavy colors like royal purple and navy tones that converse on the canvas with authority. And I really like how the vibrant, almost youthful colors provide this sharp contrast to the quote, isolated, forlorn, and aging human subjects featured. Across the street is another Nino Mir location, and this is an exhibit by Roger Herman titled Keramik, which is the German word for ceramics. And Herman is an impressive figure. He taught at UCLA for over 30 years, serving as head of the painting and drawing department, and he even had a gallery himself. Herman pivoted from painting to ceramics in the late 90s, and this exhibit features a selection of vessels that he's created over the past 20 years. So Herman's ceramics embrace the Japanese aesthetic of wabi-sabi, honoring, quote, irregularity, roughness, and transformation as he works with clay and undergoes the firing and glazing process. This is one of two Jeffrey Deitch locations in West Hollywood, and I've also never been to this one. This is a really fun exhibit by Tom Friedman titled The Cocktail Party, which he describes as a, quote, 3D cartoon consisting of 20 figures interacting. If you went to Art Basel Miami in 2019, you may remember this work being there. To create these works, Friedman uses everyday materials like aluminum foil and styrofoam. And when talking about his work, he states, quote, the humility and humor in my work allows a space to think about the seriousness of being in and of the world. The next stop is Jeffrey Deitch's second gallery location, and this is an exhibit titled Living Paintings by Refik Anadol. And the paintings are indeed living. They're based on California-related data sets. Some examples of this are wind speed, temperature, and air pressure collected from sensors all around Los Angeles, images of national parks in California, and publicly available wind forecast data collected from the Pacific Ocean. This work is titled Pacific Dreams, which features real-time Pacific Ocean data, and it gives us as viewers a new way of connecting to nature. Our final stop of the day is going to be Steve Turner Gallery, which currently has 3 exhibits on view. This is an exhibit by Jingza Du titled American Gothic, and it features new works from the artists all around American popular culture and celebrity as perceived by Du. The interesting thing about this is Du is sharing his view on these topics as a non-American who spent most of his life in either China or Dublin, and he's actually never been to the United States. But American culture has been the subject of his work for the past 5 years. My favorite works of his are these sort of art world related portraits. This is a portrait of Sterling Ruby, there's one of Jeff Koons and Andy Warhol as well. In the room next door, there's an exhibit of works by Pablo Benzo that, quote, are inspired by imagination, dream, design, and nature. And when speaking about his work, Benzo states, quote, I hope to emulate the experience of looking at a river from a fixed point. While you observe the same scene, the flowing water is always different. In the last room, there's an exhibit by Marina Iglesias, which features paintings that are inspired by folklore, medieval and Renaissance painting, myth, tarot, and ancient scientific illustration. And that's all for today. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you haven't subscribed, please consider subscribing. In my next video, I will be taking you all to downtown Los Angeles.